Here is the revised and properly formatted version of the text. I used to work at my dad's restaurant when I was in my late teen years. It was just a regular local place, but it was open until 2 a.m. every night. During high school, I would only work after school until 8 p.m., but once I graduated, I started working the closing shifts to save up money for college. The restaurant would be surprisingly busy at night, all the way up until closing. Mostly, it was just people picking up online orders, but sometimes groups of friends would come in and hang out at one of the tables while they ate. I definitely preferred working at night, as I would be the only one there and didn't have to listen to my dad bossing me around. Anyway, after 6 months of working nights, things started to get pretty weird. It was almost closing, around 1:45 a.m., and I was in the back cleaning when I heard the door ring. I finished up what I was doing and made my way to the front counter. There were 2 young men who looked really tired. One of them came up to the counter while the other stood at one of the tables. Our dining room is closed for the night, but I can still take a small order if you want it for takeout, I said. The man at the counter just stared at the menu and didn't say anything. I stood there uncomfortably as the man shifted his gaze behind me, as if he was inspecting the place. A few seconds later, the man by the table quickly walked out, and the other guy followed. It was definitely the weirdest encounter I'd had, and I couldn't think of any reasonable explanation. I kind of just assumed they were planning on robbing me, but then decided otherwise for some reason. The next morning, I told my dad about it, and he said I could start locking the doors at around 1:45 a.m. For the next few days, nothing unusual happened until it happened again. I had a customer picking up an order around 1:30 a.m., and almost as soon as he left, one of the men from last week walked in. It was the one that had been standing at the table, and I noticed right away that he was wearing the same exact clothing as last time. However, this time he came up to the counter. He looked me in the eyes for a second and then asked if I could help him jumpstart his car. The way he said it was really creepy, and it was very obvious that something else was going on. "Sorry, I have to stay in the restaurant during my shift," I replied. His face immediately shifted into a frown. He said it would only take a minute, and no one would know that I left. At this point, I knew something was very off, and I started to panic a little in my head. He began making his way back to the door, gesturing for me to follow him. I honestly wasn't sure what to do and was freaking out, but my fight response started to kick in, and my adrenaline was pumping. It's worth mentioning that I'm not really that big of a guy at all, and this man was much larger than me. Plus, I was pretty confident that the other guy was nearby too, probably ready to jump me if I didn't comply. But I figured I was screwed either way, so I might as well try to fight. I grabbed a pair of scissors we had behind the counter and stood my ground. The man turned around again once he reached the door, and this time, he looked angry and demanded that I follow him. At that same instant, a loud bang came from behind me, followed by the back door slamming open. I ran to the back, and as soon as the guy saw me, he bolted right back outside. I turned around quickly and ran back to the front counter, but the other guy had left as well. I obviously called the police afterward and gave them the security footage, but it was pretty low quality and hard to make out any identities. Anyway, I'm still not really sure why they didn't just attack me and rob the place. My best guess is that they were trying to rob the store without harming anyone, so as soon as they saw I was going to fight, they ran. Those two could have easily taken me down and made the situation much worse, so I'm glad it didn't turn out that way.